You may hear it even now, that small, familiar whisper that tries to pull you away. The one that says, "This is just another video, nothing will really change." That voice is not the enemy, but it is not your truth either. It is the echo of an older frequency, the residue of an identity that fears what comes next. It's the self that built walls to stay safe, and now trembles as those walls begin to fall. Notice how it speaks. The tone is protective, almost kind, yet behind it hides the deep instinct to remain the same. It is the inertia of memory, the momentum of a self that believes survival means repetition. But here you are, listening anyway, and that simple act of staying is the first crack in the loop. The moment you choose to stay, something inside begins to breathe differently. Your new life doesn't wait for permission. It unfolds the instant you stop running from it. Imagine for a moment that the person you've been, the one made of habits, wounds, and echoes, is not the final version of you. That within you lives another presence, quiet but luminous, waiting beneath the static of old thoughts. It has watched your pain and your cycles, patient as the tide. The heaviness you've carried isn't random. It's a cloak woven from unprocessed emotion, a silent garment of protection that has simply grown too heavy to wear. You can feel its weight every morning, the tightness in your chest, the dull repetition of thoughts that keep you tethered to yesterday. Each sigh, each hesitation, is a signal from that outdated layer of self. It says, "Be careful. Don't hope too high." Yet what if that voice, that very caution, is the last illusion holding the door closed? Right now, as you breathe, you are standing at the threshold between repetition and renewal. The old frequency wants you numb. The new one invites you awake. To stay here, to listen fully, is to tell the universe, "I'm ready." Not ready for perfection, but ready for truth. The journey begins not by fighting the voice, but by hearing it, thanking it, and gently letting it fade into silence. You felt that breath at the end, didn't you? The slight release, the loosening of something invisible. That was the first thread of the cloak beginning to fray. Because what we call the past isn't time, it's texture. It's the emotional fabric that wraps itself around you, woven from memories that were never fully digested. Every remembered feeling has weight. Each sorrow, each disappointment becomes a fiber that clings to the body. Layer by layer, those feelings harden into identity. You call it personality, but beneath the surface, it's a choreography of old emotions, fear repeating as caution, shame turning into silence, love transforming into appeasement. The body memorizes what the mind tries to forget. You can sense it when you wake. The dull heaviness in your chest, the practiced thoughts that rise before your eyes even open. It's not just memory, it's momentum. The nervous system replays familiar sensations because it believes repetition means safety. Your body, in its ancient loyalty, keeps reliving yesterday so you can survive today. But here's the secret: every unprocessed feeling still vibrates in the field around you. What hasn't been expressed remains impressed upon reality. The quantum field doesn't interpret pain as mistake or punishment. It interprets it as signal. And since that signal is steady, the field keeps mirroring it back to you, faithfully recreating the same pattern of experience. That's why so many people work hard, yet feel unchanged. They speak new affirmations, visualize new futures, but deep down they're still tuned to the same emotional frequency. The field listens to coherence, not to language. It doesn't respond to what you say. You want it responds to what you are vibrating as. So transformation isn't about fighting the past. It's about softening your identification with it. Begin by noticing how the cloak moves, how it tightens when someone challenges you, how it whispers, "Stay small," when life opens a new door. Follow that sensation. Beneath the resistance, you'll find tenderness. Every defensive reaction is an act of love that forgot it was love. It's the body saying, "I'll protect you from ever being hurt like that again." When you recognize this, shame dissolves. You see that the cloak was crafted not out of failure, but devotion. Yet even devotion must evolve. Love that once meant self-protection can mature into love that means freedom. The energy that built the armor can be reclaimed as strength once it's no longer frozen in fear. That's the beginning of true alchemy. Awareness itself transforms. The instant you witness your pattern without judgment, you shift its vibration. In the physics of consciousness, observation collapses the wave of repetition. The energy that once sustained your suffering becomes available as creative potential. You no longer repeat emotion, you release it. This doesn't happen in one grand explosion of enlightenment. It unfolds gradually, but with patience. Each breath of awareness loosens another thread. Every time you notice an old reaction and respond with compassion instead of defense, the cloak grows lighter. One day you realize you're no longer inside it, you're holding it. Thankful for the safety it once provided, ready to let it rest. And in that moment, the air changes. Light touches the skin beneath the fabric. The field around you begins to respond differently, as if reality itself is sighing in relief. What was heavy becomes radiant. What was history becomes energy. That's when you understand the quiet truth. Memory was never meant to imprison you. It was meant to remind you that liberation is possible and always waiting, just beneath the fabric of your own heart. When the last fibers of that old cloak slip away, the air feels almost electric. There's a new stillness, but not the silence of emptiness, the silence of a mirror waiting to reflect. This is where emotion becomes energy, and energy becomes form. What you once called your life is about to show you its true nature, a precise mirror of consciousness itself. Reality does not sit outside you like a painting on a wall. It bends and ripples in response to the frequency you emit. The quantum field, the same field that underlies every atom in your body and every star in the sky, is not passive. It listens. It measures the vibration of your awareness and translates it into experience. That's not metaphor, that's coherence in action. The field does not judge, it simply harmonizes. You may wonder why the same events seem to circle back, why patterns repeat even after effort and insight. The mirror is faithful, it can only reflect what stands before it. If your consciousness remains tuned to the emotional echo of the past, the reflection cannot change. You could call this karma. You could call it physics. Both describe the same law of resonance. Think of standing before a lake at dawn. When the surface is still, your reflection is clear. When the surface is rippled by chaos or fear, your image fragments. The lake hasn't betrayed you, it's showing your movement, your restlessness. The quantum field behaves in exactly this way. Every thought sends a wave through it. Every feeling creates interference or harmony. When your inner frequency stabilizes, the reflection reorganizes itself instantly. But here's the subtle paradox: the mirror does not wait for you to be perfect. It responds to authenticity. Even confusion, when observed without resistance, radiates clarity. The field doesn't need you to fix yourself. It needs you to become coherent with what's real inside you. Coherence is not calmness. It's truth vibrating without distortion. This is why pretending doesn't work. You can say the right affirmations and still get the same results. Because the field reads vibration, not vocabulary. The universe is a sensitive instrument, detecting not your surface words, but the tone of your being. It's like a tuning fork. It will vibrate with whatever note you strike most consistently, consciously or not. So the question isn't, how do I make reality give me what I want? The question is, what am I showing the mirror right now? The field is not withholding, it's mirroring with precision. The moment you stop broadcasting contradiction when your thoughts, emotions, and actions hum in the same key, reality has no choice but to respond differently. This is what ancient mystics and modern physicists point toward from different angles. Consciousness and creation are two sides of the same wave. What you perceive as matter is just energy, slowed enough to be seen. What you perceive as life happening to you is energy shaped by the frequency of your attention. And here's the grace hidden in all of it. If reality mirrors consciousness, then every experience, yes, even the painful ones, is feedback, not failure. The mirror doesn't punish, it teaches. It shows you where your vibration still carries distortion, so that you can adjust, refine, and realign. The mirror then becomes sacred. It's not an obstacle, it's your collaborator. Every reflection is an invitation to coherence. Every repeating pattern is a whisper, change the signal, and the scene will change itself. When this realization lands not in your intellect, but in your bones, the world stops feeling random. You begin to see the design in the delay, the reason in the reflection. You stop begging reality to change, and instead, you tune yourself like an instrument until the outer world can't help but follow your lead. That is the physics of creation in its purest form, consciousness observing itself into existence. And as you hold this truth, the next question arises: if you are the mirror's source, then what happens when the old reflection tries to return? That question lingers, doesn't it? What happens when the old reflection returns? You've seen glimpses of your new frequency, felt moments of freedom so real they seemed irreversible. And yet, somehow, the old self finds a way back, wearing 1,000 disguises, a familiar worry, a sudden ache, a wave of exhaustion that says, nothing's really changed. This is where most people give up. But it's not failure, it's biology. Your body, loyal to its history, is a brilliant recorder. It keeps not just memories, but chemistry. Every emotion triggers a precise blend of hormones and neurotransmitters, a cocktail your cells have learned to crave. The body doesn't care whether those emotions are joyful or painful. It cares only about familiarity. To your nervous system, predictable discomfort feels safer than uncertain joy. That's the trap. This is why, when you start to shift, the body protests. It releases signals that feel like anxiety or fatigue. It tells you to turn back, to retreat to what's known. It's not sabotage, it's withdrawal. You're breaking an addiction to the old you. Think of it as detox from an emotional chemical loop that has kept you in resonance with your past. Every time you replay an old grievance, your body releases the same biochemistry it did when the event first occurred. Each repetition deepens the groove, teaching your system that this cocktail equals home. The past literally circulates in your bloodstream. And when you try to change, your body, missing its habitual chemical rhythm, creates cravings disguised as emotion. It whispers, let's think that painful thought again, just once more, not to hurt you, but to feel stable. But stability and stagnation are not the same. You can't evolve while staying chemically addicted to your history. To break the cycle, you don't fight the sensations, you observe them. You meet them like waves rising and falling in an ocean too vast to resist. When you name what you feel without judgment, your awareness severs the link between emotion and identity. That's when healing starts at the cellular level. Scientists like Dr. Bruce Lipton and Dr. Joe Dispenza speak of this as the bridge between mind and biology. When you alter your state of thought, you alter the chemicals that instruct your genes. Change your inner signal, and your cells literally receive new information. This isn't philosophy. It's communication between consciousness and matter. The field within your body obeys the same laws as the quantum field beyond it. It mirrors coherence. You'll notice how the body softens when you stop labeling feelings as bad. Trembling, restlessness, even tears, these are signs that the old emotional codes are being released. The chemistry of the past is burning off like mist under the morning sun. Each breath you take with awareness tells your cells, we are safe in this new frequency. Slowly, the addiction begins to dissolve. There will be moments of resistance, days when the old self feels like gravity, pulling you back into the orbit of who you used to be. In those moments, compassion is the antidote. The more gently you meet the body's protest, the faster it learns there's no danger in peace. You are teaching your biology that joy is not a threat. And then one morning, something subtle shifts. You wake, and for a brief, exquisite instant, the heaviness is gone. Your thoughts feel unfamiliar, lighter, as if space has opened inside your chest. That's the body recalibrating its chemistry, beginning to match your new consciousness. You are no longer a prisoner of your own hormones. You are the conductor of their harmony. Breaking the addiction to the old self isn't a battle of willpower. It's a dance between awareness and chemistry, a re-education of your body to trust the unknown. And as that trust deepens, a strange energy begins to rise beneath the calm, a restlessness that doesn't feel like fear, but anticipation. That stirring, that tension that is the charge of transformation building. It's the unmistakable sign that the quantum leap is near. That anticipation doesn't lie. You can feel it now. Can't you? The subtle vibration beneath your ribs, the quiet unrest that hums behind your daily rhythm. It's not anxiety anymore, not exactly. It's something wilder, something alive, pressing at the edges of who you've been. This is the signal every soul feels before a quantum leap, the body trembling at the border of its old frequency. Most people mistake this for regression. They say, "Why am I so uneasy when I'm finally healing?" But the truth is that discomfort is not the end of your evolution. It's the beginning of it. When an electron jumps to a higher orbit, it doesn't slide smoothly. It absorbs energy, becomes unstable, and then without warning it leaps. No in-between, no bridge, just a flash of change. You are built on the same principle. When the old patterns collapse and the new vibration begins to anchor, the body doesn't know what to do with the excess energy. So it shakes, dreams, remembers. Old memories rise uninvited, not to punish you, but to purge you. It's the density surfacing, leaving. It's your cells releasing the stored sound of every moment you said, "I can't." You may notice strange sensations, the desire to be alone, tears that arrive without story, waves of fatigue followed by bursts of clarity. Relationships may feel foreign, conversations that once thrilled you now seem hollow. These are not signs of disconnection. They are evidence that your resonance is changing. The frequencies that matched your old vibration are losing their magnetism. Restlessness is not failure, it's acceleration. It's the soul signaling that the jump is imminent. The familiar structures of your life, career, habits, beliefs begin to feel like cages, not because they're wrong, but because they're too small for the consciousness now growing inside you. The universe is stretching the edges of your old comfort so you can fit into your new frequency. This phase is sacred chaos. It tests your trust. Your mind will want to label it as confusion. Your body will crave the predictability of the past, but your intuition will whisper something different. Stay still. The leap is forming. In these moments, your only task is to breathe and witness. Every exhale releases charge. Every inhale draws in alignment. Imagine a bow being drawn back. The farther the tension, the greater the momentum when released. The unease you feel is that pull, the gathering of energy for the trajectory that will carry you into a new orbit of being. If you fight the tension, you waste the force. If you trust it, you fly. The quantum field reads this surrender as readiness. The more you allow the discomfort to exist without defining it, the more rapidly it converts into power. Emotion is energy in motion. If you stop labeling it as fear, it becomes propulsion. You are not breaking down, you're breaking free. It helps to name this stage for what it is. The prelude to expansion. Write it down, speak it aloud, claim it as sacred. Say, I am in transition. That simple declaration collapses uncertainty into awareness. You are no longer a victim of sensation, you're the observer guiding energy through transformation. And right there, within that clarity, something astonishing happens. The heaviness begins to shimmer. The chaos becomes creative. The restlessness that once made you doubt now becomes proof that your system is aligning with the energy of your future self. It doesn't matter if you can't see what's coming next. The leap happens before the mind understands it. The soul moves first, the body follows, and the evidence arrives last. So when your world feels unfamiliar, when your emotions stretch and twist like lightning across your field, remember this truth: you are not falling apart. You are absorbing enough energy to transcend your orbit. Hold your center. The leap is already in motion. The leap doesn't throw you into emptiness, it throws you into possibility. The moment you release your grip on the old self, you don't fall into nothing, you fall into everything. It feels disorienting because you've never been this spacious before. You're used to being one version of yourself at a time, one story, one vibration, one name, but the field doesn't see you that way. It holds every version of you at once, waiting for your consciousness to choose which one to collapse into form. This is the mystery at the heart of quantum reality superposition. A particle, until observed, exists as a wave of probabilities, not as a single outcome. You are no different. You exist as a living wave of potential selves, the healed self, the thriving self, the patient self, the fearless self, all coexisting, shimmering in the quantum field, like notes waiting for a song. Every thought and emotion you feed acts as an observer, collapsing one potential into your lived experience. Consider that for a moment each time you dwell on limitation. You're observing the timeline where limitation is true. Each time you feel gratitude, you're observing the one where expansion is already happening. The field doesn't discriminate, it simply reflects the focus of your attention. Reality is not selecting you, you are selecting reality. It's strange to realize you've been doing this all along, collapsing the same story every morning by remembering it too well. You wake, recall who you were yesterday, and your mind dutifully rebuilds the world to match. The more faithfully you remember your old identity, the more consistently you call it back into being. It's a self-fulfilling echo chamber. But when you interrupt the memory, when you pause, breathe, and choose to feel differently, you open a gap in the loop. That gap is superposition becoming conscious. In that gap, infinite versions of you shimmer, waiting. You can almost feel them: the confident one, the serene one, the one whose joy no longer depends on outcome. Each breath you take with awareness is a hand reaching toward one of them, saying, I see you, I choose you. And when you choose consistently, the field collapses around that vibration. The world rearranges, synchronicities multiply, conversations shift tone. You find yourself meeting people and opportunities that feel like they were waiting for you to remember them. This isn't luck, it's resonance. The greatest secret is that the old you doesn't disappear. It simply becomes unchosen. It fades back into the wave of potential, harmless and weightless. Every identity you've ever worn still exists, but only one vibrates through you right now. The field never punishes, it only reflects where you place your gaze. So when you catch yourself drifting back into an old thought pattern, don't panic. Just know you've momentarily observed an outdated timeline. Gently reorient your attention. Ask yourself, what would my highest, most aligned self feel in this moment? Don't imagine them far away, imagine them breathing through you, because they already are. At first, this feels like imagination, but imagination is simply consciousness, experimenting with new frequencies. What you can sustain emotionally, you can materialize physically. Every version of you that exists in the field is waiting for emotional permission to emerge. And the moment that permission is granted, when your inner signal stabilizes, when your vibration becomes coherent with that chosen self, the wave collapses into form and reality changes. That is the art of superposition embodied. You are not here to create yourself from scratch. You are here to select yourself from infinity. The universe is a vast sea of versions, and you are the observer who decides which one gets to live through you today. You've seen how each potential waits for recognition, how the field responds to the signal you sustain. Now the question becomes, what will you release so the new signal can hold? Because the wave cannot collapse into a higher form while you're still clinging to the gravity of the old one. Every leap requires a ritual, an act of surrender that declares to the universe, I'm done carrying what no longer belongs. Let's call it a ceremony of letting go. You don't need incense or sacred words. Awareness is the altar, and breath is the offering. Close your eyes, if only in imagination, and picture the weight you've been hauling through lifetimes of repetition. Maybe it looks like a suitcase worn by travel, or a cloak heavy with the dust of memory. It doesn't matter what shape it takes. What matters is that you can feel it. The ache in your shoulders, the tension in your jaw, the quiet exhaustion of pretending it's still necessary. Now, in this still moment, see yourself setting it down, not by force, but by recognition. Say inwardly, you kept me safe. Because that's what the old identity was, a guardian, a reflex of protection. It absorbed pain so you could survive. It believed that walls were safety, that control was power. It meant well. It always did. But safety and stagnation cannot coexist. The soul grows restless in cages, even golden ones. There comes a time when protection becomes confinement, when the armor that once saved you begins to suffocate you. And this is that time. The universe isn't asking you to reject your past. It's asking you to bless it and release it. Gratitude is the solvent that dissolves the old self. Take a slow breath and imagine light filling your chest. With each inhale, the light expands. With each exhale, the weight loosens. The air around you thickens with presence, the quantum field responding, reorganizing. The moment you visualize release, energy begins to move. That's not metaphor, that's mechanics. The field is informational, and emotion is information in motion. Now, picture yourself walking away from what you've set down. Don't destroy it, just leave it. It has no power unless you pick it up again. Notice how the air feels lighter, how your spine straightens without effort. The very act of imagining this releases a measurable shift in your frequency. Your nervous system recalibrates, your coherence increases. And as you walk forward, something remarkable happens. The silence inside you isn't empty anymore, it's alive. It hums like a quiet dawn, filled with possibility. That's the sound of the field rushing in to occupy the space your old self once filled. Nature abhors a vacuum, and the universe abhors energetic absence. The moment you let go, new potential floods in to replace it. This is why rituals matter, not for superstition, but for signal clarity. The ceremony marks the end of indecision. It tells the field, this is final. It transforms release into declaration, grief into power. The past becomes compost for creation. So let this be your inner rite of passage. Set it down with love. Speak your gratitude for the lessons, the endurance, the strength that brought you here. Then turn your focus toward the lightness, the open space within. You are no longer wearing the story that kept you small. You are standing in the sacred nakedness of now. And in that nakedness, the new self stirs. Its first language is silence. Its first movement is breath. From here, the only thing left is to speak, to give voice to the vibration that has just been born. The silence after release is sacred, but it is not meant to last forever. Silence is potential waiting to become sound, and sound is vibration shaping itself into matter. This is the moment where inner coherence must become expression, where breath turns into declaration. Because the quantum field does not merely hear you, it feels you. Every word spoken from coherence sends a tremor through the invisible fabric of existence, rearranging its threads to match your signal. Think of speech not as communication, but as creation. The words you speak are the acoustic fingerprints of your frequency. When your voice carries alignment, when emotion and intention merge, the field listens and reorganizes accordingly. This is why rituals of affirmation have ancient roots, not because the words themselves hold power, but because the vibration behind them does. So take a breath and feel your chest expand. Feel how the energy moves from the center of your being toward your throat, gathering force like wind before thunder. The next words you speak are not to convince reality, they are to tune it. Say them slowly, as if each syllable were a ripple in the quantum ocean. I no longer create from the past. I create from the presence of who I truly am. Let the words resonate until your whole body hums. Don't rush. Feel how your heartbeat syncs with the rhythm of your declaration. You are not asking, you are aligning. The more sincerely you embody the statement, the more stable its vibration becomes within your field. The universe doesn't require repetition, it requires coherence. Every declaration you make from this state becomes a new coordinate in space-time. The field marks it, adjusts its geometry, and begins to orchestrate events that resonate with that tone. It's not magic, it's resonance physics. The external world simply mirrors the dominant waveform you are sustaining. But notice the subtle balance here. This isn't about shouting intentions into the void or forcing confidence through gritted teeth. True declaration is gentle, certain, and quiet. It doesn't strain. It feels like gravity, a soft pull that bends reality toward it. That's because the energy of truth has no friction. It doesn't need to push. As you speak these words, something in your nervous system begins to stabilize. The mind, once fragmented, merges with the body in unified rhythm. You can sense it, a subtle hum of rightness. This is coherence, embodied thought, feeling, and action vibrating in the same key. The field registers this alignment instantly. You've moved from seeking to signaling, and the moment you begin signaling, the mirror of reality shifts. People who once misunderstood you will feel different around you. Opportunities will surface that seem eerily precise, as though destiny itself were answering your voice. That's because it is. Your voice is a frequency tag, a beacon guiding reality to match your vibration. To make it real, write the words somewhere visible. Say them each morning as you breathe in the light of the new day. But don't speak them mechanically. Feel their texture. Let the emotion behind them become your baseline frequency. Every time you embody that statement, you reinforce the new signal until it becomes effortless, your natural tone. Remember, this is not manifestation through hope. It is creation through resonance. The universe doesn't respond to need. It responds to truth. Speak truth often enough, and it will begin speaking back in the language of miracles synchrony. ease, clarity, peace. And when that conversation deepens, you'll notice the past doesn't call as loudly. The echoes lose their grip. Yet sometimes, even after the strongest declaration, remnants of the old vibration return not to undo your work, but to test its strength. Those moments are sacred too. They are the final exam of transformation. You've spoken your declaration, felt the resonance, sensed the field rearrange, and for a while everything feels weightless, clear, electric, aligned, until one morning, without warning, the static returns. A wave of doubt, a sudden heaviness, a thought you buried years ago. It whispers, "See, nothing really changed." This, right here, is the moment most seekers mistake for failure. They think the quantum field has stopped responding, that the leap didn't hold. But this isn't regression, it's integration. The old frequency isn't back to reclaim you, it's surfacing to be released at the next octave. Every transformation sends an echo backward through your system, flushing out the remnants that can't travel with you. The body remembers. Even after consciousness leaps, the nervous system lags behind, sorting signals, recalibrating chemistry. Those waves of fatigue, those sudden emotions with no name, they're your biology rewiring to match your new vibration. Your cells are literally learning what peace feels like. And that learning can feel like chaos. Integration days are not punishment. They are proof of progress. The universe is testing the strength of your new frequency, not to judge it, but to stabilize it. Think of it like tempering steel, heating, cooling, shaping until the structure holds. Each emotional surge is a stress test. Every old fear that reappears is an invitation to respond differently than before. That's how identity becomes embodied truth. The key is kindness. When the waves hit, meet them with gentleness. You can't fight vibration with resistance, it only amplifies it. Instead, observe the emotion like weather passing through your field. Rain doesn't mean the sky is broken, it means the atmosphere is cleansing itself. In those moments, whisper to yourself, "This is integration." Naming the process reclaims power from confusion. Some days, you'll feel like you've been pulled back into your old orbit. Patterns resurface, tempers flare, self-doubt tightens its grip. Don't let the mind turn it into a story. It's not failure, it's familiar energy being metabolized. The nervous system is releasing the chemicals of your past, flushing them from muscle and memory. You may cry for no reason. You may feel exhausted for hours. Let it happen. These are the detox symptoms of awakening. The more compassion you give yourself during this phase, the faster the recalibration. Treat yourself as you would a recovering traveler, finally stepping off a long, turbulent journey. Feed your body clean frequencies, music that lifts, water that flows, words that soothe. Ground yourself in simplicity, deep breathing, sunlight, movement, silence. You're teaching your cells that stillness is safe now. Integration also demands presence. Don't rush to rebuild a future from the new energy. Let the energy settle first. The temptation to fix or prove your progress is an old reflex of control. The new self doesn't need control, it needs coherence. Every breath you take in acceptance sends a signal of stability through the field. The universe reads that calm is readiness for the next wave of expansion. And here's the hidden beauty: these waves never come to destroy, they come to teach precision. Each return of the old frequency gives you another chance to choose, react or remain aware, tighten or breathe, repeat or release. Every time you choose differently, your energy signature sharpens, your coherence strengthens, and the field adjusts more seamlessly to your intent. You'll know integration is complete not because nothing disturbs you, but because nothing deceives you. When the old emotions arise, you'll recognize them as echoes, not identities. The body might still tremble, but you'll stand unmoved in awareness. You'll see that discomfort doesn't contradict alignment, it confirms it. It's the friction of evolution smoothing out the edges of who you were, and then, after enough cycles, you'll wake one morning and realize something subtle but profound. Peace is no longer something you practice, it's something you are. The field feels quieter, denser with presence. Reality flows with less resistance because you've stopped opposing it. Integration becomes your natural rhythm. Expansion, release, stabilization, expansion again. This is mastery in motion. You're not transcending the human experience. You're harmonizing with it. You no longer see old patterns as enemies, but as signals that your frequency is fine-tuning itself toward coherence. The mirror of reality has learned your rhythm, and you, at last, have learned to dance with your own reflection. And once the reflection moves, in perfect synchrony, when your energy, thought, and action hum as one, the world itself begins to shimmer, as if waiting for you to take the final step across the threshold. That's when you realize integration isn't the end of transformation. It's the bridge to embodiment. You stand at the edge of embodiment. Now the mirror no longer a stranger but an ally. The reflections around you have softened. Even ordinary moments shimmer with precision. This is what it feels like to live as coherence itself. Not chasing signs from the universe, but being the sign. The shift doesn't arrive with fireworks. It arrives quietly, like dawn slipping through the blinds. You wake, breathe, and notice that peace has texture. It hums. The air feels different, as though the world has tilted a fraction toward ease. Conversations unfold without effort. Decisions come with clarity. Timing aligns. You're no longer sending out mixed frequencies. Your signal is unified, crystalline. This is the new resonance, the self that doesn't perform alignment but radiates it. You act, speak, and create from presence, not pressure. You don't demand trust from the universe because you have become the frequency of trust. Every step you take ripples outward, and life bends naturally to meet it. Manifestation, once a desperate pursuit, now feels redundant. Existence itself has become responsive. Synchronicities multiply. You think of someone and they call. You desire clarity, and a phrase on a passing billboard delivers it. These are not miracles, they are physics made visible. Coherence shortens the distance between thought and reality. When your vibration stabilizes, the universe speaks fluently in your language. But the real beauty isn't in the events, it's in the feeling. There's a grounded joy, a quiet knowing that nothing is missing. You stop waiting for transformation because you are transformation. Each moment becomes its own arrival. Time loosens its grip, replaced by rhythm. You no longer measure progress by outcomes, but by the steadiness of your peace. The mind still speaks, but softly now, like an old friend whose stories you've heard enough times to smile at. Fear still visits, but it no longer builds a home. You let emotions move through like weather through the sky, untouched by storms because you've remembered you are the sky. Living as the quantum self isn't about perfection, it's about participation. You interact with the field consciously, knowing that each thought is an instrument, each emotion a note. You create symphonies through awareness, not effort. Reality becomes a duet between your coherence and creation's infinite responsiveness. And as you walk through your day, you begin to sense it, the subtle ripple of others aligning to your signal. Your calm becomes contagious, your clarity magnetic. You realize that personal coherence is planetary healing in miniature. Every coherent being stabilizes the field for all. This is what the leap was always leading to, not escape from reality, but partnership with it. You are no longer a wanderer searching for proof. You are the proof that consciousness shapes worlds. The field listens through you, breathes through you, and answers through every unfolding moment. You've become what you were always observing: the observer and the observed, united in frequency. The shimmer of your new resonance fades into quiet, not as an ending, but as arrival. After the leap, after the ceremony, after the echoes of transformation, what remains is simplicity, breath, space, awareness. Look around you. The room hasn't changed, yet everything feels softer, more alive. The hum of existence has a rhythm you can finally hear. You understand now that the quantum field was never distant. It was always breathing with you, waiting for coherence to open the dialogue. You were never trying to reach the universe, you were remembering that you are its language. Each inhale carries presence. Each exhale releases the remnants of striving. You don't need to force momentum anymore. Life moves of its own accord, shaped by the frequency you quietly sustain. Even silence has texture now. It feels full, awake, responsive. If you ever doubt again, and you will remember the sequence: awareness, release, declaration, integration, embodiment. These are not separate steps. They are one spiral of becoming, repeating at higher octaves each time you return to yourself. The leap never ends, it deepens. So take this moment as sacred closure and gentle beginning. Feel how your heart, your mind, and the field around you have synchronized into one pulse. You have entered resonance with what was always waiting, the version of you that no longer seeks permission to exist. Now, walk into the ordinary world with extraordinary steadiness. When life pulls at you, breathe. When the mirror reflects old shapes, smile. The field is still listening, and your signal clear, loving, awake is already rewriting the story of everything it touches. You are home at last, inside your own frequency.